What is going on, everybody? My name is Jesse Pelletier, and you are watching my fourth attempt at this In the Bag 2020 video. The first attempt was just way too long. It was like 40 minutes. Phone ran out of memory. If you see the timestamp, you know this one's not nearly as long. I've learned my lesson. The other two times failed due to memory issues. It still had cached memory from that first attempt, I think. I'm not really good with that whole tech stuff. But I think fourth time's the charm. So look, let's just get right into it. What is in my bag as of April 2nd, 2020? Let's go. I'll be going from my lower speed discs to high speed discs, and in general, with a few exceptions, from more stable to less stable. So, my putting putters. Anything inside circle 2, which is 60 feet or 20 meters, I am putting with the Fierce, manufactured by Discraft. The first time I felt the Fierce was at the Memorial at Vista del Camino, round 3. I was shopping around at some vendors. They had the Fierce. I felt it in my hand and absolutely fell in love because of how thin and low profile this disc is. It's an understable putter, which I prefer because I can aim just center pole and know that it's going to hold that line for the entire flight, even if I'm at like 60 feet away from the pin. It's not going to come off that line. But really just the feel of it and how thin it is just gives me so much confidence that this is going to come out of my hand very cleanly, and it has not disappointed yet. This has just been a great disc for me inside the circle. Loving the Discraft Fierce. First disc in the Paige Pierce line with Discraft. I carry 2 in the bag. It's really just to have another one for putting practice. I don't actually putt with that other one, so not going to talk about it too much, but check out that pink on pink stamp. How good is that? All right. Next, throwing putters. This is my most overstable throwing putter. This is the A1, manufactured by Prodigy Discs in their 400 plastic. I bought this hoping it would be like a Discraft Zone or a Westside Harp, and it's similar, but it's actually more overstable than either of those other molds, which is kind of crazy to think about. But just super, super, super beefcake of a disc, which means it's not getting me the distance I had hoped that it would, but it is as reliable as I hoped it would be. So any sort of approach up to maybe 220 to 230 feet, where the forehand line is ideal, and I need it to not turn over, and I need it to finish to the right, even in a headwind, this is the disc that I will be throwing for those shots. Has not disappointed me. Really helped lower my scores over the last few months, having this disc in my bag. Just so reliable. Awesome, awesome, awesome disc. Next up, my favorite disc in my bag. The MVP Atom in the Proton plastic. This is my favorite disc in the bag because it is not only super comfortable to hold in the power grip, which I don't think is super common for a putter, in my opinion, personally, but I can throw this on any line that I want and have confidence that I know how it's going to fly. So I can throw this on a very slight hyzer if I need it to fade very gently to the left for the entire flight. I can throw this dead flat with as much power as I want and know that it is going to go just dead straight the entire flight, maybe turning very, very slightly to the right if I put really enough juice behind it, but it will finish to the left very gently, not a crazy hook to the left, but it will finish to the left. And if I really need to, I can throw this on a high anhyzer if I need it to finish either flat or maybe still have that little left finish. Such an awesome disc. Feels great in the hand. If you are looking for a straight, stable throwing putter and you've never thrown the Atom, Wholeheartedly recommend this disc. Favorite disc in my bag. Understable throwing putters. I am throwing the Innova Colt. This is in the DX plastic. Really, 90% of the time I throw this disc, it's between like 60 and 120 feet from the basket. I'm throwing this on a high release point backhand anhyzer that I need to hold that line the entire way to the basket, finish flat and straight, and kind of just park itself at the basket, leaving myself hopefully a very short putt to finish off the hole. This disc is so fun to throw because it's so slow but still so understable that I can put no power behind this at all and just make sure that I hit the line I need to hit. And it's just so understable and so glidey that it'll cover a ton of distance even if I'm putting no power behind this at all. So super fun disc to throw. Ever since I've really gotten comfortable with the lines and the power and the stability of this disc, it has really helped my score. And I find that when I'm shooting my really hot rounds, it's because I'm using this disc really well to get myself out of trouble from 60 to 120 feet from the basket and leaving myself a lot of short putts. So awesome disc. I would say this is my second favorite disc in my bag. I just like throwing putters, man. I'm a simple guy. So, last up, I do have this classic AVR in my bag, manufactured by Innova. I just keep it in the bag for extra putting practice and field work. I don't actually throw this during a round, so not going to talk about it too much. It's a classic AVR. I feel like 90% of disc golfers have thrown this disc before, so not going to talk about that one. Then we go into mid-ranges. So I'm doing way better on time now compared to my first 3 attempts. So hopefully it doesn't feel like I'm rushing, because I feel like I'm rushing. I could talk about my discs all day long. Let's keep going here. So for my most overstable mid-range, I am throwing the Buzz OS. This is manufactured by Discraft in their titanium plastic and very overstable. If I need to throw a forehand and know that this disc is not going to turn over, or throw a backhand for that matter, and know that it's not going to turn over, this is what I look for, even in headwinds. Because it's so overstable, I'm not getting a ton of distance with this, probably only up to 240 feet. But when I'm reaching for this disc, it's because this is the only disc that I can throw that shot with that much confidence. So very nice to have this disc in my bag. Super flat, which I really like for forehand discs. They just feel more comfortable for me when they're really flat. So enjoying the Discraft Buzz OS so far. Next mid-range. I only carry 4 in the bag, and this one is also a pretty overstable mid-range. This is the MD4, manufactured by Discmania, and this is in their Metal Flake C-Line plastic. Hopefully you can see how sparkly that plastic is. Really nice. This is kind of a unique disc for me in that it is one of the only discs in my bag that I throw on a 50-50 split backhand and forehand, which makes this disc super reliable. I throw this disc all the time. Outside of my putting putters and probably the Atom, this is probably the most thrown disc for me in any given round, especially in Tucson where the courses are shorter. On the forehand, it's a pretty straight disc for me. I can throw it on a slight hyzer on the forehand. It'll flip up. It'll actually turn a little bit, but then finish straight. On the backhand, though, I'm not usually getting this to turn over. It'll stay straight for a really long time and finish pretty hard off to the left. In either case, forehand or backhand, I'm throwing this between 250 and 260 feet, which gives it a bit more distance over the Buzz OS because it isn't quite as overstable. So awesome disc. Probably my third favorite disc in the bag behind those 2 throwing putters. So if you've never thrown a Discmania disc, try the MD4. You'll probably love it. Next up, the Infinite Discs Glow Sea Blend Chariot. This was a disc that was given to me from my brother Alex when we played around in Georgia. And he gave this disc to me because, if I remember right, he absolutely hated it. And the first bit of time I spent with this disc, I also didn't really like it that much. I was having a lot of trouble throwing it straight, which is what the flight numbers suggest it should do. And I felt that when I release it flat, it would kind of turn and never really come back. But when I threw it with a little bit of hyzer to hope it would flip up the flat, it would just ride left the whole way, and I couldn't get it to go straight. Now that I've put a little bit more time in with this disc in the field and on the course, I feel a bit more confident that I can get this to do what I want, which is go straight for a very long time and then finish very gently to the left. So it is staying in my bag, even though the next mid-range I'll talk about does almost everything that this disc does and more. I keep it in the bag because I feel like I need to redeem this disc because my brother hated it so much. But realistically, I could probably safely take this out of my bag and be okay, because I am throwing the MVP Axis many times when I would throw that Chariot. The Axis does everything that the Chariot does, except it also can be thrown pretty reliably on a S line or just a shot that turns over and doesn't really come back. I feel like this disc is just a bit more consistent for me than that Chariot and much more glidey. So this is by far the furthest flying mid-range in my bag. If I really put everything I have behind this disc, I'm probably going to come around 285. More consistently, though, 270 feet is about where I live with this disc. Generally, throwing it hard and flat, it'll stay straight for a bit, turn over just a little bit, and finish straight. I imagine it flies basically like a more glidey buzz, which is what the numbers suggest, but I have actually never thrown a buzz ever, which is not something most disc golfers can say. But I imagine this is basically doing what your buzz is doing, maybe just flying even a little bit further. So I love this disc. This is in the Neutron plastic. Awesome workhorse mid-range. Next, we go into fairway drivers. This is the Discraft Sting. You can see the sixth annual Groves Ace Run held earlier this year. At that event, we were given this Sting and a Discraft Zone as well. And loving the stamp, by the way. Super awesome stamp. This is a very understable fairway driver. So I don't throw this disc very often. I might be able to throw some rollers with this, although I have another disc that I'm using for all my rollers right now. But usually when I reach for this disc, it's because I'm either trying to throw this really touchy forehand shot up to like 250 feet that turns a lot and then fades back to center, or I'm throwing this backhand trying to throw an anhyzer over a line of trees. Out here in Tucson, we have a lot of trees that are between like 10 and 20 feet. And depending on how far away they are off the tee, it might be easier for me to get over them throwing a backhand anhyzer than throwing a forehand. If I need the disc to finish to the right, obviously. So for those types of shots, I'll throw this. But in general, it's just so understable that it's hard to throw this on the flight path that I want, because it's so touchy. So this is a disc I could see coming out of my bag, but for right now, April 2nd, 2020, this disc is in my bag. And we'll see if that changes next year. My other 7-speed fairway driver is another very popular disc from Discmania. This is the FD, which stands for fairway driver. This is in the C-line plastic. This is my go-to disc if I need a straight shot for 300 to, well, let's say 280 to 310 feet. If I throw this flat with a lot of power, it's going to turn pretty quick, but because it's in a pretty premium plastic, I find that it fights out of it pretty quick as well. Not quite as quick as it would out of the box, but still really doing wonders for me as far as a straight disc that I can throw up to 300, 310 feet. Really, really liking this disc. And if you look at the flight numbers and you know what they mean, you will see it's got that 6 glide. And that is the reason that I'm throwing this disc as far as I am, over 300 feet, because it just stays in the air and glides for days. That 6 number is no joke. So absolutely loving this disc. If you've never thrown an FD, what are you doing? Go try one. Then we go into the 9-speed fairway drivers. I carry 4. So let's get into it. My most overstable is this Thunderbird, extremely popular mold from Innova Discs. This is in the Champion plastic. Out of the box, this thing was super, super overstable. You see the flight numbers are like 9502. I would have given this like a 9303, maybe 9303.5. Just had absolutely no glide. I could throw this on a forehand like as hard as I could, and it would not turn over, and it would just dive out of the air, getting no distance. I wasn't throwing this any further than I was throwing my MD4. Just no glide. Now that I've beat it in a little bit, when I throw this flat on the forehand, I can get it to turn a little bit. It still fights out of it pretty hard, but it is gliding a bit more because I am getting that extra flight path, the extra S-curve. So this now is a disc that I'm throwing pretty reliably up to 280 feet. But given that it's a 9-speed driver, you would expect it to get a bit further for me, especially where that FD I'm throwing much further than this. But it's just so beefy, doesn't really have a lot of glide. But very good at what I need it for, which is that 275-foot forehand. I will throw this backhand usually into headwinds, or if I need a spike hyzer shot, this is one of the discs I'll reach for. Or if I need a low skippy shot, I can throw this pretty low so that when it comes into the ground, it doesn't have a crazy angle. By the time it hits the ground, maybe it's only developed that kind of a shallow angle. And because it's in a stiffer plastic, it'll skip really well. So nice little utility shot disc if I need it. So this disc has certainly saved me a lot of strokes with that kind of skip shot. Next up, the newest disc to my bag is the Getaway. This is manufactured by Dynamic Discs in their Lucid X plastic as part of their Team series from 2019. This is the Team Series disc of Paige Shue, formerly known as Paige Bjerkes, which is the name on the disc. This disc is what I got hoping that it would be my 300-foot dependable forehand disc. And this disc is all of that and more. So on the forehand, I am throwing this, trying to release it flat, maybe with a little bit of hyzer. And what I'm finding in the field is that it will turn over just a little bit. It doesn't even look like it's turning per se. It just kind of looks like it slides to the left before finishing pretty hard to the right on my forehand, covering a distance of like 315 feet. So even though this is the same speed as that Thunderbird, it's covering more distance because of that little extra turn that this has, and because it has way more glide. So I am outthrowing the Thunderbird by like 40 feet with this thing, which is exactly what I wanted. Awesome disc. And in addition, which I cannot say about the Thunderbird, is I can throw this disc backhand and still get about that same amount of distance. Usually on the backhand, I think I'm going to be throwing this with just a touch of anhyzer, so it'll stay straight for a bit longer as it tries to fight out of it before finishing pretty hard to the left, covering at the end of the day between 300 and 310 feet on average. So awesome disc. Super happy I picked this up because it fills exactly the spot I wanted. Paige Shue, your Team Series disc 2019 is absolutely amazing. I see this in my disc